What we do at Ray Law International is we work with HR senior managers to help bring key employees overcome immigration barriers. And you'll see these foreign nationals are working so hard at what they're doing because it means all that much more.
So welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the MISHRM Resource Partners videocast. It's great to have you here. I'm your host, Greg Coyne. Once again, I've been blessed to have a great guest with me. Today we have Anthony Ray, who is the owner of Ray Law International. And Anthony, thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm ready to have a great time today.
I love it. We had some great conversations prior to us starting this, so I'm almost a little nervous because I want to make sure that we get a lot of that back on here. So one of the things I just wanted to start out with is, you know, there's a lot of, with the topics of immigration and the economy being top of mind right now, in the news on a nightly basis. I thought this is you're a fantastic person to have on. So why don't we just start from the top? First of all, what is it that you do as the owner of Ray Law International? And number two, how have you seen immigration affect a lot of companies in this area?
Very great question. So what we do at Ray Law International is we work with HR senior managers to help bring key employees overcome immigration barriers to move them globally and to make sure they have the right personnel. We work with managers, executives, engineers. We work with multinational companies and we work with startup companies. So some of the challenges that we employers are facing right now is just finding the right people. Right now everywhere you look, there is a now hiring sign in the window. Every week we're getting calls from employers saying, how can I get my foreign national friend, relative, or person I need to run my organization? Everything from Montessori's to trucking companies to large corporations. I mean, there's a desperate need for people to come over. So we help people find those people, get them the right employment-based visas, and keep the companies and businesses functioning and moving forward.
Okay, and we talked prior to this, and it was a great conversation about this, and I want to bring it up again. Had to do with the fact that, and a lot of people may not know this, but during COVID, you had people that couldn't leave the country. So they were looking to renew their visas, which probably increased your workload, immensely. But at the same time, now we're looking to add people to the workforce. How has that kind of been a hiccup over the last, not just couple of years, but even now?
Well, that's a great question because not all the world's opened up yet.
Yeah, that's true too.
And so even though the US has remained open fairly to most countries, so people could go back and forth, but although we did cut off Europe for quite some time.
Yeah.
We had a lot of our European friends who just could not transfer those key employees over. But as we open up, it's a mixed bag. It really is. Korea's opened up, but China's not.
Yeah.
These are big players, and it's really challenging. So we see a mixed bag. People who can start transferring people, that we're seeing an increase in that area. People are looking at the many opportunities out there because we're not at full capacity yet.
Right.
So, it's busy. It's good for an immigration attorney, but remember, as I was telling you before, we solve people's problems.
Yeah.
So I think one of the really remarkable things we deal with is all the industries I was telling you about, from aerospace to, your Uber driver probably needs immigration support, but so many industries need people right now. We have to find the right visa categories to fit their needs and their solutions. And I think that's the challenge that we're working with employers to solve and to do it quickly so that we can fill those positions. I was doing a podcast yesterday and, the USCIS asylum department has like 300 plus positions open.
300 plus?
300 plus positions open that they need to fill. And they're looking for people graduating from college. So, the notion that immigration gets a bad rap, that they're taking people's jobs, is far from the truth.
Yeah.
And if you want a job, you can get a job.
Yeah.
Being a U.S. citizen or a green card holder. But the key is, they're looking for people with certain qualities. You've got to get skilled. But a lot of states are training people. I think it's easier now for people, even at Kroger's, they have an education program.
Yes.
So all of these things are helping people. So we really need a lot more people in. I don't know how the government's going to solve that.
Well, that's going to be tricky. And the thing is, too, you spoke to it. What have you seen in terms of, I'll call it lag times with regards to getting visas? Because I have clients that are dealing with it now where it'll take anywhere from, 6 to 18 months for someone to go through the process, depending on where they're at, which, we use the word predictability.
Yes.
It's very difficult to predict because there could be some hiccups that come along with it, and you're trying to grow a business. I mean, what are some of the other things that you've seen with regards to that, just with lag times and how it's affected some of those other businesses?
That's a huge problem for employers, and it's more problematic for those employers who don't plan in advance. As soon as I get a client on board, I tell them, let's plan ahead. Mm-hmm. Whether it's someone doing a sporting event, they're an athlete, or whether it's a corporation, with U.S. immigration, you have to plan ahead because there are a few categories other than, for example, the TN visas for Mexican and Canadian nationals, where you've got to wait or go through a process to get them in. And that wait, as you mentioned, could be anywhere from several months, sometimes to a year or two, just to get them in.
Jeez.
And these people, the companies, the organizations, they need to be here now.
Yeah.
So this is the problem we have dealing with an immigration system that's out of date, not relevant to the needs of current employers, the lifestyle that we're living right now. Yeah.
And go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it's tough.
The biggest thing that I found is that, and believe it or not, I'm very pro government and education, but I also know that there are two industries that are very difficult to change. It's a slow moving process. In business, they tend to want to work a lot quicker, just on how you described it.
Yes.
Here's where I'm curious. I know from getting to know you, Anthony, you are a problem solver. You love to work with people and help their problems. But now you're working within a system that is slow and monotonous, and you've got industry owners who want things like this. So how do you bring the three parties together, and where can the hiccups come into play outside of just not planning accordingly?
Well, what I found over the years is part of that comes through education.
Okay.
So a lot of the videos and information we put out there to the community is first and foremost educational. People think, I can just get a visa like they're going to New Zealand or other countries and say, I'm on a work holiday and start working. You can't do that in the US. So first is educating about, hey, this is what it takes to get this green card process through. And we want to be realistic.
Yeah.
All too often, you'll hear some attorneys just sell the product and say, no problem, I'll get it done for you right away, just pay me, and then later on you find out the process is a lot longer than you expected. Oof. We want to avoid that. So through education, our employers, those professionals, they're going to understand that, hey, this is a lot more complicated than I thought it was or what Google told me, and I need to plan in advance. And that's where, first, you bring them back to reality. Now, once you bring them back to reality, let's come up with 1 or 2 or 3 options that's going to work for you. And that's what we do in our strategy sessions. We, look at the options. We make sure they understand it, the decision makers, whether it's an individual or a corporation. And then they know, okay, this is where I need to go. And through that, we build up the trust, the relationship, and they know that, hey, if I follow plan A, B, or C, I'm going to get it. Or in some cases, there's risk. Just like everything else. Everyone wants a perfect solution, but some options, you have a risk and you've got to take that risk, but you know it going into it. But from our experience, and we've done, doing this for 20 years, we can avoid most of the risk if you follow our advice and the guidance based off the facts. So sometimes I'm a little too quick in analyzing things, but I really want to, educate, listen, put that plan out there, and that's the way to avoid those problems. Now, sometimes it's really just, hey, this candidate is just not going to fit. And I'm going to have to find someone else. And it's at that point where, the employer has to make a decision. And we've had those too where, great candidate, they really want them, but the visa category options aren't there in the short term for that employer.
Okay. Because there'll be quite a few business owners and HR professionals that'll be watching us with this cast. And the thing that I can foresee, and I have to think you've probably seen it, the business owner won't be thrilled about that answer, of course, but the HR professional has to deal with the fallout, meaning, all right, what are the things I need to have planned for, one, us going forward, or two, if we do have to, I hate using the word, but I'm going to pivot to change direction on where we need to go, what are the things I need to do? So for those individuals that are dealing with it from an HR side, what are some components that you would recommend for them to make sure that if they're going to bring you into the equation, that they're ready, and they're ready also if things don't work out?
We've had very few cases of that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, we're there to take the burden off of HR.
Love it.
I mean, HR has so many facets to it. Even being a small business owner, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a full-time job. I can't even do all this work.
Yes.
So HR professionals are wonderful. I don't know how they do it all.
You and I both.
If I can take part of that burden off, which is the HR, the immigration, if I can take part of that immigration burden off their shoulders and really just be the solution and take that off, then I can speak with any, owner or whatever. I've had high-powered people who've been on CNN from Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, the high-energy guys are like, I want it now, give me an answer. That stressful environment.
Yep.
We deal with those types, which is fine. That's how they do business.
Absolutely.
And the solution doesn't change, though.
Correct.
And the key is I have to have a client that's going to listen, be educated, and make a decision. Now, if you get an owner or president who's just not going to listen to you and go off and do their own thing, I mean, unfortunately, that's their choice. But I, as a professional, I could sleep at night. I know I did the right thing. And we've had those once or twice. You get, very famous people, maybe sometimes out of California or wherever, and they just want to bring this person over and, there's just got to be a way. And unfortunately, doing things ethically, there is no way.
Yeah.
And one of the passions I have about immigration is, it's just doing things ethically, doing things right. And immigration, because of the language barrier, because of submitting things to the government, there's so much room for fraud.
Sure.
And some of the things I see coming from, some major cities of what people do, and a lot of them get caught, which is good. But you're dealing with people's livelihoods, and that's how I see it. For some people, it's very stressful to be working in the immigration because you're dealing with people's futures, their livelihoods, their businesses.
Yeah.
But for me, I understand that. I treat people as if it was my own business, as if I want to see their success. And I treat it like that, and through that, I'm able to give them the right advice. I connect with that person who's difficult or doesn't want to hear the bad news. But we're always, as you mentioned earlier, I'm going to come up with solutions. I'm not just going to say, oops, nope, you can't do that. Just figure something out. Come up with a plan of how to bring that person over, maybe at a later period of time. And we talked about planning or, plan that out. Maybe there's short term. There's temporary workers here that can cover a certain gap that you need. Or bring those people on board to meet certain requirements of the USCIS or the government. So there are ways to do it. That's the beauty of this. You look around you, everyone's doing business. They find a way.
Yes.
And also, that's the way we practice. So rarely do we find business owners or individuals that just say, I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to give up. I'm going to try to find an attorney who's going to tell me what I want to hear. And that's okay, because I know from a professional, from just a passion for what I do, that, okay, when things don't go right, we're here for you. We're here for you.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. And the fact is that there's ethics involved, and there's law involved, and you have to abide by that, especially in this environment. Yes. And so let me ask too, there's a lot going on, and you'll hear about it, read about it, in terms of the economy. How has the kind of fluctuation with the economy affected immigration, both from a positive and from a negative standpoint so far, from what you've seen?
Yeah, so immigration I usually divide into two worlds.
Okay.
Basically, you have sort of the family base, some part of the removal, people in deportation, which gets on the news quite a bit.
Yeah.
Issues at the border, asylum. That's sort of one group. And then another side of immigration, which is really ignored quite a bit, is the employment side. Once in a while, you hear something about an H-1B, for example, when Disney, fired their IT department and hired a company that had H-1B workers. So once in a while, you'll hear employment side, but most of what you'll hear is the family-based individual asylum removal side. And that is a small part. And when you look at your doctors, dentists, all your professionals from the medical, engineering, we're bringing in people to help support what we need. The agriculture is huge. Construction, you name it, immigration impacts or touches that. And whether it impacts our food supply or food security, because the administration has increased the H-2B visas, which allows those temporary workers to come in and help support us. They've also, there's no limit on, but H-2A for agriculture, they want to make sure that people can cross back and forth. All through the pandemic, they kept that border open, right? They're stopping people who, don't have the visa, but they're letting people back and forth in spite of the virus concerns, because, it's our national security. We've got to feed our population.
Thank you.
And so immigration it's always a part of our lives, but the pandemic impacts certain aspects. So we thought it would, drop off a cliff, but it didn't, because things still have to move forward.
Sure.
And during the pandemic, everything continued to move forward because we had a lot of the people in place, or we extended visas. So we were very busy through the pandemic, because now people had to come up with solutions.
Yeah.
Things they normally didn't have to do. They couldn't transfer people back and forth because they couldn't get in and out of their country. So now that as we open up, people are now working on those projects, starting those ventures that have been on the shelf for about 2 years, because now they can get the key people over. And also what we're seeing is there is a huge demand of people legally wanting to come, start their own business in the U.S., start working in the United States, and they're looking at all options, and it's good to see, because it really tells us that in the U.S. we still have a really great economy. It's a great culture. It's a great country to live in. And from an immigration standpoint, that's great, because it doesn't stop. People want to keep coming.
Yes.
And I love that. I enjoy their smiles. I love what they contribute. And you'll see these foreign nationals are working so hard at what they're doing, because it means all that much more. My 16-year-old, he's like, oh, I just got a job, I can go pick one up. But for another person, taking a position, whether it's at a grocery store or some other place, with the benefits they're providing, it's life-changing.
See, that's cool. I hope people, when they hear this, that they understand those perspectives, because it is incredible still what this place can give to us. So Anthony, let me ask you, there's a lot that's going on, but what's something that people seem to misunderstand about maybe you, immigration? I know we've talked about it before. What's one thing that comes to mind?
I think one of the things is that smaller firms cannot help larger corporations. We work with small firms, startups to multi-billion-dollar corporations.
Right.
So whether it's filing 45 TNs in 1 week or just one petition each year, we're able to help. And what we've tried to do is we're minority certified.
Okay.
And we really want to work and partner with larger corporations. And we really need them to see that, hey, we have the abilities, we have the resources to take care of their needs at a high level. And that's what we do for our clients right now. And I think that's sort of the misconception. Everyone thinks, hey, I need a big law firm, I need to pay $600 per hour for this service, but yet you may not be getting the best service. So as a minority owner, working with large corporations and growing the business, I think that's one of the misconceptions people have. You can work, we can't, especially once they get to know us and that we're working hard and we're gonna, deliver on our promises and the services because we have the passion, we have the resources, and we've done it before. A lot of people don't know that until then, but the minority certification goes ahead and does the background check, all the financials, make sure that is legitimate. So they've done a lot of the groundwork. Now it's just building a relationship and starting and growing with those organizations. So, I think that's one of the misconceptions they may have about smaller firms or even smaller minority-owned firms.
So one of the things I want to make sure that people know, how do they get in touch with you? What are some things that are coming up for you, Anthony?
Well, to get in touch with us, we're always on social media. We have hundreds of information videos out there on pretty much every topic on immigration you can think of. We've covered it all. And if that's not enough, feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact information, our website's out there.
Yep.
We have a podcast on Spotify now, so you guys, check us out there. But the best way to reach us is just call us, set up an appointment. We have a free consultation.
Great.
And just get to know who we are and let us get to know who you are and see how we can really touch and change your business and also your lives.
I love it. I love it. And real quick, what's that telephone number?
The telephone number is 888-401-1016.
Awesome. Now, I will say this. Love this interview. Love to have you back again if you can do that.
Would love to join you. Can't wait for the next one.
Oh, thanks, Anthony. And thank you all for being with us. Again, I'm your host, Greg Coyne, and this is the MISHRM Resource Partners videocast. Check us out on YouTube. And before I let you go, thank you again, Anthony. Again, we had Anthony Ray from Ray Law International. And until next time, have a great one, everyone. Thanks and take care.
Bye now.